Welcome, everyone, to another Elevate Lane County Working Wednesday in our spring series. Today's career readiness webinar and our entire spring series is sponsored by our partners at Selco Community Credit Union. Thank you, Selco, for your dedication to student success and education. My name is Lizzie Gray, and I'm a project coordinator for Connected Lane County. As many of you know, each Wednesday for the next few weeks, we'll be joined by a local professional who will walk us through a new career readiness skill. Joining us today to tackle the topic of cover letter writing is Holly Tate from the University of Oregon's Career Center. Thank you for being here today, Holly. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone just a little bit about what you do at the U of O?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lizzie, and thank you, students, for being here today. I know cover letters is a very weird subject to talk about, and it's not always the most fun. So I'm going to try to help make it entertaining and help you be able to write some really good cover letters in the future. I work at the U of O in the Career Center, and my job is a job and internship developer for Eugene Springfield. And so I work with local businesses and help them to create part-time jobs and internships and different learning experiences for students that require zero experience. And so I really want students, college age students is who I work for, but I also am really passionate about helping high school students find your first jobs. And so I am trying to help local businesses work better with students. And so that's how I spend my time, and it's a really, really fun job.
Fantastic. Awesome. So I do want to remind all of the students tuning in live that we cannot see or hear you, but you are more than welcome to type in questions for Holly into the chat, into the Q&A feature, or you can raise your hand. You can use that feature to get our attention, and we can unmute you so you can ask your question to Holly yourself. All right, well, we have just about 45 minutes here, so let's get started. Holly, take it away.
Great. So today we're going to be talking about cover letters, and I don't think I wrote my first cover letter until college. And so I was really nervous the first time I ever had to write one. I loved my resume. I thought my resume was so great. It talked all about my club experiences and all the leadership roles I had had. And I was like, surely that's enough to get me hired. And one of the jobs that I wanted to apply for asked for a cover letter, and I had no idea what to do. And so I kind of wish that someone had sat down with me and helped me understand why in the world they're asking for one more piece of paper, because it was really intimidating to me. And so I'm hoping to make this a little less intimidating, give you some templates and things that you can use for if you ever apply for a job that asks for a cover letter. So let's get started. So my first little section is called write a what? Why? So the purpose of a cover letter is to introduce yourself and your resume. So it's kind of an opportunity for you to tell an employer more about you. So stuff that maybe you didn't include in your resume that you think would be helpful for helping them understand more about you and your personality and the skills that you bring to the table, to let them know why you're the best candidate for the job that you're applying for. So a cover letter looks a little bit different than a resume. It's more of a letter, cover letter, go figure. So it's in a letter style, but the best ones are kind of like a story. And so you're trying to help an employer get to know you better and learn something about who you are by telling stories about your past experiences. And so you only have a couple paragraphs to be able to write a cover letter. And so you really have to think about what are the types of skills and experiences that I think will be most important to this employer to get me that job. And so you kind of have to go back in your brain and think about all the things that you've done, whether that be in class or in a volunteer experience or even a past job, and think about what's going to be relatable to this new employer. The other thing I really like about cover letters is that they're a sample of your written communication skills. A lot of job descriptions say that they want someone with strong writing skills, and this is a way for them to actually see that you have those writing skills. I hire a lot of students at the U of O, and I see a lot of bad cover letters. And so, but I also see a lot of really good ones. And so it's a great opportunity if you're a good writer or you're really good at proofreading to be able to demonstrate those skills to a future employer. And lastly, it shows the employer that you actually read the job description and that you're the best fit for the job. So one of the things we'll talk about later is that this idea of, do I have to write a new cover letter for every job? Yes. That is how you actually make the biggest impact, is by showing the employer that you really looked at the job description and you found things in there that you're really excited about, or things that you can really relate to help them understand why you're a good fit. And so I definitely recommend writing a new cover letter for each job, but you don't have to start from scratch every time. So I'm going to give you some templates so that you don't have to rewrite these things every single time, because that would get really boring really quick. So how do I look? So a cover letter needs to be short. It does not have to be a novel. It doesn't have to be the best, your best writing of fiction or it should be fiction for sure, but keep it in the nonfiction category, but it's got to be short. It's just a little intro. You don't want to have too many paragraphs where someone gets tired of reading really, really long paragraphs. I used to be the worst at that. I wrote the longest paragraphs, and I would always have people complain about how long my cover letter is. So I am better now because I've had to read those cover letters and I don't like reading them either. So I've learned my lesson. So a cover letter, it looks like a formal letter. It's got a couple different parts that we'll be talking about. So there's always going to be an introductory paragraph, some body paragraphs, and then a conclusion. In terms of the look, you want to make sure that you use standard margins. And so make sure it's at least an inch from every corner. You don't want them to see too many words on a page. It can really hurt somebody's eyes, especially in this virtual world we're living in. So try to be intentional to use bigger normal margins. Try to use an easy to read font and size. And so what I usually use is Times New Roman 12. Anything smaller than that, and it ends up being really hard to read, especially if they print it off, it's just too tiny. And anything bigger than that makes it look like you are kind of cheating. So 12 is like the go-to number. And then Times New Roman or Arial or Calibri, those are really good, easy fonts for anybody to read. So stay away from Comic Sans and Papyrus and all those fun ones. Cover letters are single spaced, so it's not like a paper or anything like that. It's going to look a little bit more like a letter. You don't have to indent the paragraphs. You can if you want, but most people just put a big space in between each paragraph. And so that's just kind of a professional writing style that looks really clean and makes it easier to read. And so you don't have to worry about ear indentions or anything like that. And then all the alignment's going to be to the left side of the page, as you can see in this example. Because in English, we read from left to right. It's just kind of the way we do things. And so if you were in Japan, it would be the opposite, but you're going to be applying for jobs probably in Eugene, so stick with the left. So this resume sample, I will provide you at the end of it so that if you want to write one similar to this, you can use it. But this is an overachieving high school student who has lots of really great experiences that she was able to pull from. And so it's a really good one. I think it's a little long. I don't necessarily think she had to do as much as she did, but it's a great kind of sample to get you started. My example is going to be a lot simpler.
Hey, Holly, before we move on to the next slide, there is a question. The student sees the bullet points in the letter and they also see the paragraphs, but will you get into how to differentiate what you're typing and what could possibly be in bullet points?
Yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. So hang tight.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now we're going to break it down into the individual sections.
Great.
A little bit easier. And so every cover letter always starts off with a heading. And this is just your contact information. If you forget to put this, they have no way of getting in contact with you. So if they want to offer you a job, they don't have your phone number, they don't have your email. And so it's just really common knowledge to put all your contact information up top. Some templates will tell you to put your street address and things like that. I don't think it's necessary anymore. It's kind of old school. I don't like people knowing where my street, like where I live. So it's kind of a safety thing too. So I don't necessarily, if I put my resume up on LinkedIn or something like that, I don't want people knowing where I live. And so I usually just do name, phone number, and then your email address, and then put the date that you're writing the letter. Some more formal styles will ask you to include the contact information for the company. I think that's a little too much. This is prime real estate. And so I don't necessarily think it's worth your time and energy to find all that information. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. One thing that I've had students ask me before when I say professional email is what exactly is a professional email? I have one email address that I use for job searching, and it is my first name dot my last name at gmail.com. And so it's not the one I use whenever I sign up for coupons. It's not the one I give to my friends. It's not the one I use. Back in the day, we used to use instant messaging and all that fun stuff. And so, so I gave my example of what mine was in high school. It was WM Drum Major 05. I was the drum major of West Morgan High School in Trinity, Alabama, and I graduated in 2005. So it was very dated by the time 2006 came around, and I was looking for jobs. So I had to go find a new email. So just go ahead and go on Gmail or something like that and go ahead and create you an email just for job searching. That's just kind of a best practice. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of your fun one. Feel free to keep that with your friends. But it's also good if you're applying for colleges and stuff. That way you've got a professional one when you're going off to college too.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Absolutely fantastic advice. And you could use it for, things like signing up for Elevate events. And it's helpful too when you're corresponding with folks because it's clear who we're talking to. Sometimes I don't think it's too common to have an email signature set up. And so often if your email address doesn't include your name and you forget a salutation, we have no idea who we're talking to. So that's awesome advice.
Okay. So now we're getting into the intro paragraph. I like to say, if there is an opportunity for you to figure out who you're actually talking to, so if you know the name of the person who's hiring, put their name there. That will really get their attention and let them know that you did your research and that you just went that extra step to figure out who you're talking to. Sometimes on the job descriptions, especially if you're on LinkedIn or even like the Connect Lane County Board, you can't always figure out who it is, because when it says email your resume to careers at whatever, uofo.com or something like that. And so sometimes it's hard to figure out who that is. And so if you can't figure it out, I like to just say, dear hiring manager. I don't like to say to whomever it may concern, or like, it just feels weird and like it's very just old school. Yeah, very Shakespearean. I also don't like to use I don't like to use salutations like Mr. or Mrs. Because you don't know what people's pronouns are and you don't know like what they like to be called. So I just avoid it. And I just go, dear hiring manager, or I put dear Holly Tate if I know who it is. And so it keeps me out of trouble. So that's kind of how I decide to decide who I'm talking to. The first paragraph, you are helping them understand who you are, where you found out about the position, and why you are excited to apply for the job. And try to figure out something you're actually, I know some of these job descriptions, you're like, I can't get excited. Sometimes you just need a job and you're like, I don't know if I'm really like excited about this or not, but try to find something about the company or something about the job description that caught your attention. If you're like, oh, this is something I think I'll be really good at. And so this one's just going to be a couple sentences. If you had a friend or family member or someone that works in that company tell you about the job, give a shout out to them and let them know, hey, Lizzie Gray at Connected Lane County told me I'd be great for this job. Because you never know how those connections can help bring your name to the top of the pile. If they get 20 candidates, but you were the only one who Lizzie knew and they trust Lizzie, then they're going to read your resume first. So anytime you can find a personal connection, I think that they really do help. Bonus, yeah, the bonus material, if you feel like you can fit it in this section, is to kind of go ahead and state why you believe you're a good candidate or match for the position. And so this is something you'll have to go and read the job description and try to figure out why you think you're a good candidate. And so if you were thinking about this as like a paper, like this would be kind of your thesis statement. So this is why I think I'm the best fit, and I'm going to show you how in the next 3 paragraphs. And so if English is your thing and the word thesis statement brought you joy, use that idea. If it just brought you anxiety, I didn't say anything. I was a total English nerd, so. Awesome. Okay, so that's kind of how you start it. Now getting to the good stuff.
I like it.
So this is where you actually talk about why you want the job and why you think you're going to be a good fit for it. And so because you're probably in high school or kind of in a situation right now where maybe you haven't had a lot of job experience, this is a great time for you to talk about your educational experience. Talk about where you're currently in high school or where you just graduated from. If there was something you were really good at in high school, like a certain subject that you're like, oh, I was really good at this class, and they talk about these kind of skills. So I want them to understand that I know how to do this in the classroom. I bet I can do it in real life too. And so you don't always have to just talk about work experience. If you've got experience, great. But if not, if there's places that you have volunteered that you can relate to, or if you were in a club and were in a leadership role, or maybe just you had a really cool class project you worked on, and you kind of had to organize your peers or something like that, you can talk about leadership in that way too. Just think about anything in your realm of experiences that you could possibly relate. And one of the examples I'm going to show you, I talk about experience about how you can talk about maybe a way you've helped your siblings and how that can become job experience. And so that might be something you relate to as well. The other thing is that you want to explain what you can bring to the company. You want to let them know why you're going to be a good fit and why they need to hire you. And so it's not as much about like what you're going to get from the experience of working for them. They know that you're going to get a lot from working for them. They want to see the other side of it and you thinking about what you can contribute to their team. The other idea is that you want to try to tell a story. Don't just list your skills. So it's really easy to say, hi, I'm Holly. I'm a hard worker. I really enjoy technology, and just kind of like listing stuff. They want to kind of see examples of ways you've used those skills before. And so anytime you can tell it more as a story and not just like a list of qualities, I think that's a good way to approach it. But you can also, you'll see in my examples, you can just list stuff too. Like if that's the style, like it works too. And that kind of goes to the example of the bullet points that one of the students that y'all pulled up a second ago. That would be in this section if you wanted to give a couple examples of how you have done a skill. You might start your paragraph talking about your educational experience, and you're like, I want to give 2 examples, bullet point, bullet point. And it just kind of helps break up a big paragraph. I have a resume that's almost all bullet points. And so I love playing with different styles, and it kind of just helps bring things out if you're like, hey, this is really important and I want to make sure they don't miss it. So that's how I would use bullet points in this section. And then,
oh, sorry, Holly, but you've got to think too that whenever, if a company has a job posting open, they're inevitably receiving probably more than just one resume and cover letter. And so if they sit down to review all those and their eyes are fatigued and their brains are fatigued, you want a clean, simple refreshing thing for them to look at that they're going to pay attention to, both in a cover letter and a resume.
Yeah, the rule of thumb that most employers say is that they give about 2 minutes.
Wow.
2 minutes to your cover letter and about 2 or 3 minutes to your resume. And
Wow.
so you got to make sure that your writing style is attracting their attention, because if you've only got their attention span between them and like picking up a phone call or something like that, then you gotta be really careful that they're getting the most out of what they do read.
Totally.
So my little question here is, how do I know what skills they want to know about? Because I've got tons of skills. I could write about my karate skills. Like, who knows what kind of stuff goes on your resume, and that's not a secret. It's actually in the job description. And so they tell you exactly what they want you to write in your cover letter in the job description. And so we'll actually pull apart a job description in a couple minutes, and you'll be able to see how they're not so secretly telling you what they want you to talk about. And so it's something really nice that they do. And it's and for those people who actually read the job descriptions and write a cover letter, it gives them kind of the competitive edge to be able to be seen as more qualified than others. So I just talking about your experience, and you're like, Holly, I've done nothing. I literally like go to school and then I come home. Like, I don't really do much of anything. And you know what? Like, that's cool. And we've all had times in our lives. I really didn't have a ton of jobs in high school. I was a babysitter. And that was about all my parents let me do at the time. And so what happens when I don't have quote unquote experience? You've got skills, and this is where you get regardless of who you are, regardless of your background, regardless of how good you're doing in school, you are good at something. And these are things that make us up as people, and that we can talk about as things that are valuable to bring out into our jobs. And so these are called soft skills. So if you ever heard someone say soft skills, these are things about your personality, the way that you interact with other people, that really make you a good potential candidate. And so it's important in cover letters to highlight these soft skills, because a lot of times they don't show up on a resume. Like, I don't really know how I would talk about my stress management in my cover letter, like if you look, or in my resume, because you can't really, like, that's not like a responsibility I had, was to manage my stress. It's just something I had to do to be good at my job. And so the same thing for flexibility. Like, there's no way to really talk about that on your resume. And so your cover letter is an opportunity, if you've got a lot of these soft skills, to be able to show them ways that you would bring that to the table. And the reason that employers think soft skills are important is because they can't really teach you how to be creative, and they can't really teach you empathy, or can't really teach you how to have personality. Like, those are things that you have to develop on your own. And so they can always teach you how to run a cash register, or how to sell this product, any of those things. Like, they can always teach you how to do those. But if you've got these basic soft skills, they know that you have a great foundation to be a good employee. So anytime you have the opportunity to talk about these types of things in an interview, it's going to make you really shine.
That's great. At Connected Link County, we call them professional skills.
Oh,
and to all the students on the call, remember, in the fall, we took a deep dive each working Wednesday into one of these professional skills. So if you're sitting there thinking about, I don't know which professional skills I have or soft skills I have, we give real life examples that you've likely developed in school, so that you know that, like, which skills you can identify with. So if you're sitting down to think about these things, go back and look at those webinars on YouTube to see which ones are closest to home for you.
Awesome. Do you have we call them career readiness skills? So
yeah.
Professional skills is the easier way.
Yes, yeah, fewest words.
But yeah, I don't always like the word soft, because I think they're like essential. Like,
they are essential.
Like, these should be essential skills to being a good employee. Like, you gotta have little bits of all these things to be a really great employee or a great person, to be honest. Like these are good for civic engagement and life in general.
Absolutely. And I think calling them soft skills in this webinar is smart because I think a lot of businesses still call them soft skills, but we are chipping away at that, and we're soon going to call them either professional or career readiness skills.
Awesome. I know there's some language barriers there. Okay, so you've gotten through all your examples and now you're ready to tie it up with a bow and send it off as a present to this employer. And so it's important that you close with a strong reminder of why you are a good match for the job and for the organization. And so you want to show them that you've done a little research on them, you understand something about the mission of the company that you resonate with, to help them understand why you would be a good fit for the role and for the work community as a whole. Another important thing is to try to do a call to action, like, hey, I am ready to meet with you for an interview and I would love some time with you. And so go ahead and tell them like, hey, I'm available for an interview. And then at the end, we call them complimentary closes. But those are just kind of more formal conclusions to letters. Find one that kind of fits with your personality. Respectfully yours doesn't sound like that's just not my cup of tea.
Sure.
Best regards, like that tends, I usually just say best, like best Holly.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's mine. I was like, best. You can decide what I'm besting.
Exactly.
But it sounds happy and I'm a happy person.
Agreed.
And so sincerely sometimes doesn't sound like me. So you get to decide what you put there. There's a whole bunch of different options. And then make sure to write your name on the bottom so they know who it's from. There are really fancy ways if you want to put your actual signature in there. If you use Adobe and want to like put your actual signature, it looks cool, but it's definitely not like necessary. So just making sure that your name's down at the bottom. If you go by a different name, so if you have a formal name and you like to go by, so my name's Holly Michelle, but I just want to go by Holly, I kind of write it out there how I like to be, addressed. If you want to put your pronouns down there, that might be a good place to put that as well. It can just help them understand when they do call you for that interview that they know that they're going to be able to use the pronouns that you prefer. And so that's a great place to put that as well.
That's great. So quick question for you. I'm an Elizabeth and I'm trying to picture what my resume is. And I think it's Elizabeth. Would you suggest just overall, and I like that you can clarify in the cover letter what it is you go by, but if a student's name was Elizabeth, would you suggest them using that or their nickname?
I tend to go, it depends on like what your nickname is. If you had a nickname that wasn't attached to like Lizzie is short for Elizabeth. And so like my sister's name's Rebecca and she goes by Becky. And so on her resume, it says Rebecca quotations Becky and then her last name. And then at the bottom, she just signs it Becky.
Okay.
And so it's kind of up to you. A lot of times you're going to have a formal application as well, where you have to put in your legal name and possibly even your social security number and things like that. And so the idea would be to be consistent as much as you can, just so they can follow things through their digital system and it matches all the paper stuff that they have with you too.
Okay. Okay, great.
So before you hit send or print, old school, you might want to actually print this and take it to the employer. There's a couple things you need to do before you press send. And so proofreading, I'm one of those people that procrastinates and I wait to the last minute to do lots of things. And so sometimes I don't leave myself time for proofreading and I might have a bunch of typos, or maybe I have, like I said here, I have one too many exclamation points. And so try to give yourself a little time when you're writing these to give your eyes a break and come back to it later before you send it, because you might see something different. Make sure that your margin, make sure there are no repetition or typos. So I think I have an example later where I use the word excited like in 3 sentences in a row. And I like definitely didn't proofread that last night when I was going when I was designing this, but it makes for a great lesson
Mhm.
because even though it might look good to you the first time around, maybe go back and look or get a friend or a family member or a mentor or Lizzie or somebody that you trust to go back and read over it before you send it off. Sometimes I notice that because I might have copied and pasted something, or
Yes.
maybe I was using a template and then I try to like insert something. I have like 3 different font sizes and all different kinds of fonts and stuff. And so I just make sure at the very end that everything is the same font size and same font. So it all looks nice and neat. And sometimes I'll go and like color things or highlight things that I want to go change later. So I make sure there's nothing left that's highlighted or red or anything like that. Yeah, ask someone for help. It's definitely, as you're getting more comfortable writing them, you might not have to ask for help as often or with every single resume, but as you're getting more comfortable with it, doesn't hurt to ask for help. And there's a lot of people in your life who would love to help you. And lastly, this is kind of a weird one, but I like to save these. I save one copy as a Word doc. And so that way, if I want to go edit it, or maybe I want to change it for another job later, I've got an editable document. But when you actually mail it or email it to attach it or whatever you're going to have to do with it, I would save it as a PDF because then it saves all your formatting. And so if someone has, maybe you wrote it on your Dell, but I am reading it on my Mac and I don't have that font, it'll save the fonts and all that stuff. So if it looks pretty on your screen, it'll look pretty on my screen. And so that's just kind of a pro tip. The other pro tip is how you actually name your file. I always do last name, first name, cover letter, and then the year. It just makes it easy if a employer has 50 digital resumes and 50 digital cover letters to keep up with all your stuff together. And they're going to probably have to rename it last name, first name anyways. And so you're just saving them a couple minutes worth of work. And so they love you because you just saved them some time because they were going to have to relabel all this stuff anyways. So that's kind of that's a pro tip that a lot of people don't know. Okay, so we're doing good on time. So I am going to go through a couple practice ones to give y'all some examples of what this looks like in real life, because it's easy to say like, oh, you talk about your skills, but let's actually talk about some skills. So I have 2 jobs that I pulled from the Connected Lane job board. So these are jobs that are actively trying to hire students who are participating in Elevate right now. And so Richardson Sports Y'all met earlier in the week, and they actually have a job posting for a full-time customer service representative. And so I read through the job description. I was like, this is kind of cool. And so I just pulled some of the highlights from their job description. And so they had 2 different parts to it. So most of the time on a job description, it'll have information about the company and then usually like a little paragraph about like, this is the type of person we're wanting to hire. And then it will have like actual like hard skills and things that they really want you to have to be successful in this job. So for this job in particular, when it came to hard skills, they said that they wanted somebody who is going to have good customer service skills. And they explained what that meant to them. And so one of the things that I was trying to think through is like, okay, I need to think about a time where I have enjoyed helping other people and how have I interacted with them in a positive way. And so that was one of the ideas that I have floating my head as I'm thinking about writing my cover letter for this. The next thing that they said was important was going to be data entry. And I was like, what in the world is data entry? Because it's not like something we do in school or realize we do in school, but we actually do a lot of. And so my example, I was trying to think about a time where I've had to keep really detailed notes for a class, thinking about like, oh, I'm a really fast typer and I don't make a lot of mistakes. So that's probably really good with data entry because it means I'm going to be really good at paying attention to details. And that's important when it comes to data entry. And the last thing it asked for in hard skills was Microsoft Office, including Outlook, Excel, and Word. And those are things that I don't know. I know some people use the Google-based things, but there are a lot of programs that you have to use in virtual school right now. And so I was trying to think about times that I've had to use these programs in the virtual classroom. And even if you're using Google Suite, like you can talk about Google Suite, it's really similar, and say, hey, I haven't worked in Microsoft before, but I'm really good at Google Docs and I'm really good at Google Forms or whatever, and help them understand that you've done something similar.
Sure.
And then the other side of it, they kind of secretly told you what soft skills they were looking for. And so if we were applying, what are some of the things that you might put on your cover letter based on this description? And so feel free to throw it in the chat. What are some things that you possibly see that look important? Take a minute to look over that. And then I am going to give you the cheat sheet, which is, okay, these are the things that I pulled out. So I saw that they want me to love sports. They want me to enjoy working with a variety of people, enjoy working in a fast-paced environment. They want someone who's fun and energetic. And then they said strong written and verbal communication skills and enjoys working with people. So they gave me all kinds of clues as to like what they are wanting me to talk about. Christian, I think that's a great way to talk about customer service. You have to deal with some angry people, and that's really similar. I mean, especially for this type of job in particular, because it's a sports job. But yeah, there's a great way that you can talk about any opportunities you've had to work with people that maybe were disgruntled, or people that you were in a leadership position and having to tell them different information. I think that's a great way to talk about that.
To those who can't read the comment section, Christian asked, the only time I've worked with people is at a refereeing job. Can I put that down as customer service experience? And I believe Holly's answer in short was yes. And you are de-escalating situations for sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. So this is fake Holly's resume or cover letter. She's a senior at Fallfield High School instead of Springfield. But I kind of wrote it out based on the template I had provided you earlier. So I got my name, my contact information, and my email up there, the date I wrote it, and then I actually looked up who the HR manager is for Richardson, and her name's Michelle. So I wrote it straight to Michelle. And you know what? If for some reason Michelle's not the right person, like it's not going to be a big deal. Like people are going to know who Michelle is, and they'll be like, oh, she at least attempted to figure out who the right person is. But if someone's in HR, they're probably going to be the person reading the resumes. That's part of their job. So for this, I introduced myself. I said, I'm excited about the customer service representative position, which was the name of the position. I named the company Richardson Sports and that it was in Springfield. And then I told them where I found out about the job. So I found it on the Connected Lane County job board. And then I start to try to figure out how to integrate all those words, those secret words that they're telling me are important. So I told them, I believe that my passion for sports, along with my strong communication and data entry skills, which was also part they asked about, will help me succeed in this role as a fun and energetic team member. So I'm only in like sentence 3, and I think I've already used like 7 of the words that they said were important. So like I'm already like I could just stop there. Like I'm really like I'm already like a top candidate at this point. So next paragraph, I talk a little bit more about like my education, and so I was trying to figure out, okay, I need to talk about some of those hard skills. So I'm going to talk about using technology, because they said that they wanted somebody who knew how to use Microsoft products, and they also wanted somebody who knows how to work collaboratively. So I tried to think of an example that I could talk about how I enjoyed using technology in the classroom and that I like working with others. And then I give them an example of how I feel comfortable working in Word and Excel. And then because they had listed some other software that I don't know, I told them like, hey, like I look forward to learning that stuff. Like I'm a good learner, and like I would have a lot of fun learning all these different types of things. So it shows them that I read the job description, and also that I have a learning mentality and they're going to be able to teach me. And that's something that they're going to be looking for. The next part this is all fake. I do not play softball, but I was the drum major for the band, so I know nothing about softball or sports. So if something is very wrong in my cover letter, don't hold it against me. But so I don't have any professional experience in customer service. So kind of like Christian's example of refereeing, I talked about being the fake team captain of my high school softball team, and talked about how the things I'm learning as a leader on the softball field have helped me to do some of the skills that they're going to be asking for. And so the green section right here is based off of some stuff I saw on their website of what they were looking for, like what they value as a community, as an office. And they talked a lot about teamwork and hard work and commitment. And so I made sure to integrate that stuff so that they knew I had done my research and that I would be a good fit for their organization. And then I gave an example of kind of like Christian said earlier, like how do you talk about refereeing in a way that talks about customer service? And so I said I had helped with fundraising activities and I enjoyed working with parents and whatnot. And so it was my way of trying to show them how I've done something customer service adjacent, even if I don't have like quote unquote real experience. I just did this to be funny, but I said, did I mention that our hats are made by Richardson Sports? I've been a brand ambassador for the past 4 years and didn't even know it. So it shows that I know what they do. I know they make baseball caps. And so it shows them, and this is a fake example, so but it may or may not be real, but if you can look at one of their products or something like that and just show them that you've gone the extra mile to figure out like how you connect with their company. And then I just kind of close out with talking about being excited to learn more about them and keep developing my skills in customer service, thanking them for their time and asking them to reach out to interview with me. And so this is a really short little cover letter, but I feel like it packs a really good punch because look how many words we were using that were straight off the job description. And so the more that they can see that you are tailoring this, this document to their particular company, like it'll be really obvious to them. And they love to see words that they use. So if they're using the word love sports or passion for sports, like use the same kind of language because that's how they talk about it in their office.
Yeah, absolutely. But I like that you also give examples and personal examples because it's clear that you're not copying and pasting what they put in a job description. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun science. So for my next example, it is a part-time position at Cafe Yum, and it's a restaurant crew member position, and their job description was really simple. I think in real life, Cafe Yum is probably not going to ask you for a cover letter when you apply online, or if you bring something into their store. But just because they don't ask for it doesn't mean that it's not something that you could add. I think if you are open to it, it's a great opportunity to go the extra mile and help them understand why you'd be a great candidate, especially if your resume doesn't have a lot of experience of the things that they're looking for. This is a great way for you to tell the story of why you think you would be a good fit. So I am pro cover letter even when it doesn't ask for it. But so so they didn't do a ton of hard skills in the traditional hard skills section. They talked a lot more about those soft skills, those professional skills. They want someone with a positive attitude. They want someone with good communication skills. There were some things that might not be like the food handler's card or the server permit. Those might not be things that you have yet, and don't let that keep you from applying. So I would say like the vast majority of the jobs out there, the job descriptions are just wish lists for these employers. It was like in an ideal world, if they could have the perfect candidate, they would want someone with all of these qualities, and they know that they're not going to get their entire wish list. And so if you can show them, hey, these are the things I've got, and I'm more than happy to do these other things if I'm offered the job, like that's more than enough for them. And so some of the like secret hidden things that were in this one is it talked about an emphasis on night shifts and weekends. And so if that's something you're open to, make sure to talk about it in your cover letter, because it'll give you a competitive edge, because you go out right and tell them like, hey, I'm available, like, please hire me. And then it talked about different types of customer service and restaurant management things that you can kind of incorporate into your cover letter as well. And so these are pretty standard across pretty much any food service job that you're going to be applying for. So we pulled stuff apart again, and I used essentially the same template. I just went in and started to change stuff and had to be really careful to delete stuff about sports and make sure that I didn't accidentally leave something left over from that last one. And so I made sure that, so Cafe Yum has an exclamation point in their name. And so I needed to make sure that when I talk about them, that I spell the name of the company correctly. And so that's something a little different. And so just making sure little things like that are taken care of. I made sure to say that I was applying for the one in Springfield, because I bet that they have job openings in Eugene and other places too. So I wanted them to know that I only wanted to apply for the Springfield job. Told them where I found it. And then the unique thing I talked about is I said, it's my favorite restaurant, which I've ate there a couple times and I think they're good. So, but if that is not true for you, if you're applying for the Cafe Yum job and you're like, I like barely, like, I'm not sure like if I've ever even ate there, like, don't say that they're your favorite restaurant, because in the interview, they will probably ask you what's your favorite thing. So like, don't set yourself up for failure. If you're like, the tacos, we're like, we don't sell tacos. So be really careful if you ever say something about something being your favorite or really excited about something. But I did kind of bring in, they talked about passion for excellence and positive attitude. So I made sure that language was there. Whoop, where'd it go? Too many things. There we go. Okay. No, wrong one. Went back really far. Anywho, so as I read the preferred qualifications, I knew this role was for me, and it's not just for my winning smile. So I kind of told a joke. It's funny. They say they want somebody fun. You know, they use the word winning smile. It was a way I could integrate it into it. I think if someone read that, they would probably giggle and keep reading. So that's what I want them to do, is to keep reading. I enjoy using my communication skills. And then I talk about like, what are those communication skills? So I say I'm a good listener. And so that's going to be helpful when I'm fulfilling orders. And I'm also very friendly when it comes to meeting new people. So I'm trying to like show them how I think it will look when I'm working for them. And so even though I don't have any professional experience, I'm helping to show them what I'm going to look like if they hire me. And so that's kind of another way you can kind of use your cover letter to paint a picture of what it can look like when they hire you. So I told them outright, I'm like, this is my first job in food service, but I'm no stranger to the kitchen. And I say that I have been cooking for my siblings every Tuesday night since I was in 8th grade. And so I'm giving them an example of something I wasn't paid to do. It's something that was actually more of like a family responsibility, something that I was doing to care for others. I wasn't getting paid, but it can still relate, because I'm going to be able to show them how I use my skills in that situation to translate that into what it could look like when I'm in a workforce. And so I said I like to try new recipes and introduce them to fresh ingredients. I use the word fresh ingredients because I know that Cafe Yum focuses on organic food and fresh food. And so it shows that I've done my research and I know what's important to them. And I tried to show them how it was important to me as well. And then I actually talk about things that they said were important in terms of like cleanliness and taking good care of equipment and customer service. And I tried to figure out a way to talk about that through my situation that I decided to talk about. And then I addressed the fact that I don't have that license yet. And so I said, I look forward to obtaining those certifications, and just kind of left it as that, you know, like I don't have to explain when I'm getting it, or like, I'm just saying, yeah, I'll do it when you tell me to do it. And then in the closing paragraph, I make sure to let them know, make sure that they know that I'm available for nights and weekends, which is great because I'm in school. And so just make sure that they know for sure that I read that part and that I'm going to be available when they're wanting. And so Yeah, just like the other example, use words from their job description to describe yourself. Give some out of the box examples since you've never maybe worked in that situation before. And then let them know availability if your availability matches what they prefer, because that will definitely put you more towards the top as a candidate they want to talk to more. Awesome. And so the last thing, and I will make sure Lizzie is going to throw these in the chat, or I can too. But these are 3 templates that I really liked. The first 2 are really good for high school students, and they are ones that I adapted in my presentation. And so if you want to be able to copy paste, or they even have Word versions where you can download it and then fill in the blanks, there's some examples there for you. The balanced career one is a little bit more advanced, and it's got a lot more examples of different styles. So if you liked the bullet points in that first one and want to try to do more of a bullet point one, it's got some really good examples of that. And then if you ever want to look at my presentation again, you're more than welcome to look to use that Prezi link and be able to go back and look at that again later.
Fantastic. I just dropped something in the chat. Outside of those links, to everyone on the call, we will make sure to send out Holly's slides and the links to those 3 templates to everybody who is here. Thank you, Holly. That was fantastic. I feel more prepared to write a cover letter now. And cover letters were super intimidating to me, even though I've written some. So this is, I loved how you broke everything down into like bite-sized pieces. It feels much more manageable.
Yeah, I would say resume, like your resume, which we'll talk about next week, tends to be something you do. It takes you a lot of time, but you only kind of have to do it once, you know, like every now and then you'll go back and add some stuff, or maybe take some away some stuff that's not as relevant. But for the most part, like my resume looks kind of similar to it did when I was in college. And so I've just changed out some of the jobs and things like that. But your cover letter really is an opportunity for you to have more of a conversation with an employer and let them know like why they should pick you. If there's 2 people that have really similar resumes, like what makes this is an opportunity for you to tell them why they should pick you instead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. We do have one question in here that I thought I would ask. It is my worst fear come true, but Bree asks, what do you do if you send the wrong cover letter to a business? I guess that if you're applying to a lot, it'd be easy to accidentally send the wrong one. Mortifying, but what do you do?
So when I first graduated college, I was totally doing that. I think I'd applied for like 7 or 8 jobs at the same time. And I was literally just taking the name of the employer and like copy pasting it out. And I missed one. And I caught it after I'd sent the email. And so I think I updated it and I sent it. I figured out who the person was that was receiving the emails and stuff like that. And I just said, hey, like, I think I sent my resume with it as well. Like, hey, like I've recently done an update of my resume and cover letter. Just wanted to make sure you had the most up-to-date copies. And like, I didn't tell them what was wrong. I just told them like,
that's smart.
This is the best one. Like, I just want to make sure, because I think some time had passed. I think it took me like a month to realize I had screwed up. And so I just said like, oh, well, you know, like I've added some like leadership experience since then. And so I just totally like pretended like nothing was wrong. But I mean, I think I definitely would say try to send a new one and just let them know like, hey, here's the most up-to-date copy of this. But yeah, okay. No, it was very like nerve-inducing. I was sweating.
I'm sure. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Well, I've spelled people's names wrong.
Oh, I'm sure. But I mean, going back and trying to fix it is better than just ignoring it. So,
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Holly. This was so thorough and so complete, and I am so grateful, and I hope that the folks on the call are too. Yeah, well done, and thank you very, very much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Bye, everyone. We will see you next week with resume building. All right.